Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Eric Devin and Philip Bargil. Unlike some of the players, we don't get any time off for the international break, and Les Bleus will be determined to bounce back from their Euro 2016 heartbreak. Did they impress? Did they find the formula? Can they find the formula to succeed? And how did the transfer window end in Ligue 1? All of this and more after this week's headlines. France won a friendly this midweek on Thursday against Italy 3-1, thanks to goals from Anthony Martial, Olivier Giroud, and Levan Kurzawa. A reply just after the first goal from Graziano Pella pegged back the visitors, but they went out with a comfortable victory. They will now face their qualifier on Tuesday against... just a moment while it pops up on my screen.
Belarus,
yes, that's it. Yeah, it took a moment for me to think that one. The France under 21s were also in action this midweek, but they lost 1-0 in the last minute to Ukraine, which leaves them in third position of their group. They faced Iceland on Tuesday, needing a victory to really challenge for that top spot. In transfer deadline news, David Luiz left Paris Saint-Germain on transfer deadline day to rejoin Chelsea for a reported £32 million. And the biggest news coming into Liga was the entrance of mercurial Italian international Mario Balotelli joining Nice, hopefully to get that magic touch that Hatem Ben Arfa found last season. And that's all for the very brief news this week. But remember, to keep up to date with everything to do with French football, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFM. We start this week by taking a look back at France's 3-1 win over Italy in Bari on Thursday evening. It was a strong showing from a relatively new look Les Bleus after their loss in the European Championship final. But Philip, how do you think that the team fared in this one?
Yeah, it was interesting to see how they should actually listen to our podcast. So it means we are extremely successful. As he started Djibril Sidibe at right back, he started Kurzawa, so Evra didn't get to play. Lois was injured, so Mandanda had to start in goal. I personally thought that he could have done a bit better on Italy's goal, and he had the midfield three of Pogba, Kanté, and Matuidi, who I felt I don't recognize of Pogba. Matuidi played particularly well. It was the players. It was a friendly. Let's be honest with that, and motivation was never going to be as big as for an official game. But I would say half the side played quite decently. Varane, Koscielny were quite good at the back. Giroud was instrumental in his goal. It was nice to see Martial score his first goal for France. His confidence needed that. I'm sure you could, Nathan, tell us a bit more about his Manchester United, his beginning of the season for Manchester United. Haven't really followed. So it was quite interesting to see all that pegged together for a game against a side that did have a very good Euros, one of the rare big sides to have a good European Championships. They lost to Germany on penalties in the quarterfinals, so that was it's always some kind of a toss coin. But I felt if I can say just a couple of words on Italy, that you can feel that Conte is an absolutely brilliant manager. Yes, they did have quite a bit of players out for this one. But God, you look at their starting 11, it just doesn't strike fear in you, does it? It's they still got probably the best goalkeeper in the world until he retires, Gianluigi Buffon. But apart from that, you don't really see such attacking sweat from this outfit. It's and second half was not exciting, but Kurzawa rounded off a great performance, a great start to the season for him. Man of the match for me, and probably man of the match in every game he's been, or probably not at Monaco. since the start of the season. So it was it was okay. It was a good, it was a nice run around before Belarus tomorrow.
Eric, let's talk about those fullback positions because they were an issue and a concern during the European Championships, and we were saying that someone like Dribil Sidibe, and Levin Kurzawa might be those heir apparents. How do you think they fared, and do you think that they really should be the established starters from now
on? I would personally lean towards Korsha at right back. It remains to be seen who'll get the start tomorrow. I thought Sidibe worked hard, but really didn't offer as much going forward as he potentially can. I think that Korsha, in the matches I've seen for him at Lille this season, has looked really good going forward, and I think would offer a bit more than Sidibe. He did a pretty good job defensively. Desilio was not really a factor, especially when compared to Kandreva on the other side. So he did well to limit him defensively, but could have offered a little bit more going forward. On the other side, Kurzawa was great. He wasn't at his best defensively. I mean, Kandreva got in quite a few crosses, but I think that we saw Barzali removed at halftime. I think that Kurzawa's forays forward were a big part of that. I think that, Kurzawa definitely has to be looking at it being the unquestioned starter at left back, especially with Evra not being selected. Again, right back, I think there's still going to be some decisions to be made on the part of Didier Deschamps. Depending on the opponent, whether he opts for Sidibe or Korsha in a given match. I still think Christophe Jallet might have a part to play, depending on how his form for Lyon is when he returns from injury. Whether he can displace Raphael as a starter at Lyon is another question. I personally think he should be starting when fit. Given Raphael's, worries defensively, I think Jallet's a better two-way player. But so some intriguing choices to be made. But yeah, Kurzawa, I think I agree with Philip, man of the match. I will say I was really disappointed with Varane, though. Phillips, you mentioned he thought he had a good match. I was pretty disappointed with the way he was turned for the goal. He was lucky enough to give away a penalty. I can see why he's not starting at Real Madrid, and I kind of have to question, whether, Umtiti shouldn't be starting along Koscielny as the first choice. It seems that Deschamps has a clear proclivity for starting Varane, but I don't think he's shown enough to deserve that, and certainly not to wear the captain's armband. That was just a really bizarre decision.
But really got a big fat swing in L'Equipe, and not quite sure if it's deserved or not, but. It is quite telling of how bad he's been downgraded for a couple of months. But he's definitely been the scapegoat by L'Equipe, and Varane was actually left alone, to be honest.
Let's talk about Matuidi a little bit, Philip, because he's had, let's say, an indifferent start to the season. He's barely played, really, and he's gone in this French side, and he didn't have the best of games, as L'Equipe probably have pointed out. Is his place in the side under threat now, with the former Moussa Sissoko in the European Championships, and him now at Tottenham as well? Has he got to look over his shoulder a little bit?
Well, you would hope that he would be maybe replaced by someone up and coming and very, very good. I think he's not as good as he used to be, but he's still better than anybody else we have. If he performs to his level, I think he still went into this kind of range of very good players, of some kind of players who can play in the Champions League, which to me is not Sissoko and is not Kabay. I can maybe you can think of other names, but right now I'd still put him on the pitch. But he will probably come as a scapegoat for being not very flexible in terms of systems, as you rightly pointed out, Eric, last week, where he's very good at it in a 4-3-3 with three midfielders playing right next to each other. He's on the left, so he's helping the right back. But maybe he can develop some kind of very good relationship with Kurzawa and can play with him on that left hand side, a bit like when Zidane and Lizarazu were playing 20 years ago. And that could work quite well. But yeah, he definitely needs. First of all, he needed to sort out what he was going to do this season, and he starts saying, "Okay, I'm disappointed not to have left, but I'm very happy to stay," which really does sound like, well, I wanted to leave, but I can't really say that, otherwise I'm going to get killed by the media. So that's a bit of a shame, and I think his head was a bit elsewhere, to be honest, this summer. But now I reckon he will stay the full season with PSG, and that this may be good for him psychologically. But if he does leave next season, his place in the starting lineup in Russia is definitely under threat. Can we sort out some kind of debate I had with my friends? Is France in any danger of not finishing top of that rather mediocre group?
It's a good question, isn't it?
I have very little doubt.
I can't.
Probably not a 10 in 10, you know what I mean? But
it's unlikely. I can't see the teams in their group really being any better than them. When you start looking over who they've got in their group, I mean, Sweden, they're okay, but they've not got Ibrahimovic anymore, who's in a massive X factor. Netherlands aren't the side they are. They're bringing a lot of young players through. I mean, they started on their friendly. They started. His name escapes me, but he's at Feyenoord and he's on loan from Watford. Peter's mentioned him before. He's a talented footballer, but he's played about 3 games this season, and he scored his first goal at the weekend. And they're starting him, so I'm a little worried about where they are exactly. And then, realistically, the other 3 teams, Bulgaria, Belarus, and Luxembourg, aren't quite in that same bracket. So while it might not be plain sailing, I don't know what you think, Eric, but I can't see a real stern challenger to France's title unless Netherlands get their act together.
Yeah, I would have to agree on that. But I mean, the Netherlands, there are talented players on that team, and if Danny Blind can get this team together, it's not impossible. I think France should be the firm favorites, but with the emergence of Virgil van Dijk last year at Southampton, I think that Netherlands are going to have an improved defense, and Kevin Strootman's coming back. It could happen, but I wouldn't stake money on it.
Yeah, because it's strange because I saw Danny Blind's side, and he didn't start Van Dijk at the friendly, and he's not played often. And players like David Klaassen, who looks very, very good for Ajax, and he's not playing at all. So it's such a strange team at the moment. I don't know where they're ending up. But
to me, they really seem miles and miles behind what the likes of Schneider, Van der Vaart, Van Persie, or if we're going to go back in time, Bergkamp, Overmars, De Boers and stuff could actually do. And I think this is some kind of era where the Dutch players are going to have to get used to the fact that their youth products are not as good as what their former world-class players were able to deliver, i.e. a World Cup final. Also plays at the last World Cup, and I think you can liaise this with their neighbours, which is Belgium, where they hosted Euro 2000. They were quite poor in it. Then they went to Brazil, South Korea, and then 12 years without a single tournament. And it's not a bad football country. I mean, football is quite big in Belgium. I reckon it's a bit bigger in Holland, but I wouldn't be surprised if Holland wouldn't qualify for a couple of tournaments, even though I do reckon they'll finish second. Which does not mean they're going to qualify, but Yeah,
it's always in flux, isn't it, in European football? But let's focus back on Les Bleus, Eric, and their attacking options, because they really came to the fore in this game, and the likes of Anthony Martial and Griezmann were given the start, and then the likes of young Ousmane Dembele, who's impressed us, came on. They're just so deep at those front positions, aren't they? It's scary.
Yeah, but I that's true. But I do think that France didn't really seem to know what they were doing in attack for me. It was nominally a 4-3-3, but at times it looked like a 4-4-2 diamond with Griezmann behind Giroud and Martial playing a little bit more centrally. So I think there was a little bit of confusion in terms of sharing the pitch, in terms of space, but absolutely. I mean, again, Coman still to come back. Dembele, big occasion for the young player, but, tried some things, didn't necessarily come off, but, let him grow into it. Let him get more confidence playing with Dortmund, more confidence playing with this team. And not to mention the likes of Tolisso and Rabiot are still to come back or still possibilities to come into the squad in midfield as well. There's a lot. Lacazette, Fekir, if he can recover from his injury, there's really a wealth of depth and talent in this team in the attacking third. And I think that Deschamps just needs to continue to work and figure out the right tactical situation. I mean, the adaptation he made in Euro 2016 really was the difference in terms of France moving up a gear. But he seems to once again be struggling with how to get the best out of these players in terms of a tactical system.
So let's go.
I have a question regarding Evra. I noticed that Schweinsteiger had his testimonial in a friendly last week. I think it was on Wednesday. Is it time for Evra to do the same? I mean, frankly, I think he should have said, "I'm going to retire." Maybe before the final, he would have said, "This is going to be my last game for France. After that, I'm gone. I'm done." To me, Kurzawa has to start now. He has to make that left back spot his own. Is it really that? Is it? I think the time is right for him to retire. What do you guys think?
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Well, I don't think so.
I'm meaning more in the sense of maybe not on the pitch, but off the pitch, certainly. The amount of praise he gets from ex-players and current players for his attitude and his leadership skills is, and especially in such a young team with those forward players. I mean, I've seen Paul Pogba talk quite a bit about him. Now he's back at Manchester United, and his appreciation for Evra and how he follows his leadership probably goes a little bit unmissed, although he obviously had that big spat a couple of years ago. But that clearly has an effect on the team, and his leadership skills, even if he's not on the pitch, even if he's just used as a backup, as long as he's willing to go, it's difficult. It's difficult to replace. I mean, what do you think, Eric? Do you think is this the time for Dean to be that second right back challenging Kurzawa, or would you keep Evra within that squad?
I think I would opt for Evra as a backup over Dean, just because of the fact that Evra is still an important player for Juventus. He's still, he showed at the tournament he's still a capable presence. Kurzawa should have every opportunity to start, but if Dean's only going to be playing a handful of matches for Barcelona, I'd rather have someone that's match fit and is getting consistent minutes in big matches, and that seems to be Evra at this point in time.
We'll move on to our final question from this bit, Philip, and that's because obviously the game tomorrow night is the important one. What are we expecting? Are we hoping that France simply go out for the win, or do they need to try and find this formation that will start being a success heading into the further qualifiers and hopefully to Russia in 2018?
Oh yeah, that is a good question. There's been a poll, I think. In the media, saying that the French people actually preferred France to play 4-2-3-1, which actually did work better at Euro 2016 when we had Griezmann in the hole. And I think it's a bit. I'm not quite sure if it's a right thing to do against a side like Belarus. I think against Belarus we can play 4-3-3 and nick a goal probably around the 60 minute mark. So I don't think Deschamps is going to take any particular risk in that one. Maybe play a more dynamic formation or change formations during the game against a side like Holland. I would think.
Eric, do you think?
I reckon we're going to start 4-3-3.
Eric, do you think they need to show a bit more dynamism against Belarus, where they can really make a little bit of a statement?
Yeah, personally, I would play a diamond myself. I'd put Payet behind Giroud and Griezmann, and in midfield I would go with probably Kanté, Sissoko, and Yes, and Pogba, yeah. I'm sorry.
I was going to say for a moment.
Sorry, but no, I would opt for a diamond. I think Payet's creativity was sorely missed in the opening stages of the match. I think that playing him as a number 10, even though he himself says it's not his best position, he said that dating back to his days playing it at Marseille. He still does a fantastic job with that, and then puts everybody on the pitch in their best position. And I think it just brings the most out of the team. You can't afford not to have Griezmann central. You can't afford not to have Payet on the pitch, especially if Belarus are going to set up to play defensively.
Yeah, and we hope them the best. And just to add, as you mentioned earlier, Philip, you weren't sure how Paul Pogba had done for Manchester United. He's done all right, I think. Quietly say he's done nicely.
I was talking about Martial.
Oh, Martial. Oh, he's a little bit less.
Not as good.
It's good to see him. It's good to see him score that. Should give him a bit of confidence. But we'll move on to this
so
week.
So the less said, the better.
Yeah, at the moment he'll grow into it. It's all right. Don't worry. This week has also been the end of the transfer window, obviously, and what a crazy period we saw. Really, spending across Europe has been pretty mental, especially in England, and plenty of that talent flowed through Liga, with especially a lot of people in those departure lounges. So let's look at some of those moves, especially to those in England, and what people can expect from Liga and stars. We shall start with the surprise move on deadline day, Philip, and that was David Luiz's return to Chelsea. How much has he changed in the last few years for the Chelsea fans to understand how he's progressed?
I'm not sure if he has progressed. He stays quite the same to me. He's quite a he stays as the same passionate defender that we all see him to be, but he sometimes really seems like he just doesn't care at all what is happening on the pitch. It was apparent at Monaco, and personally, it would be quite. It is quite good to see him leave and hopefully have Marquinhos or Kimpembe have a chance to start next to Thiago Silva, which probably should have happened years earlier. But to me, yeah, David Luiz is still quite a bit of a liability as a centre back, but quite good as a defence shielder. So that hasn't really changed. I mean, I remember back when PSG bought David Luiz, from Chelsea. It was basically the same thing. He's he can be a match winner. He can be a big game player, that's for sure. But there'll be most weekends will be just don't care if we score if we concede 1 goal or 2 goals against the likes of Stoke City or Watford. No offense. If they're 5-0 up, doesn't really matter. So some concentration that's, but nobody's going to blame him for that if you're 5-0 up.
Yeah, and Eric, it was an interesting move because he obviously started the first couple of games of the season, but with Thiago Silva and Marquinhos to come back, there was no guarantee that he was going to start for PSG, and they got plenty of money for him. Is this a bit of a bemusing move from Chelsea?
Yeah, I think that this is frankly grasping at straws for the Blues. I think that Conte has built his reputation both at Juventus and with the Italian national team around having very, very solid center backs. I mean, maybe in the likes of Barzagli, they're not the quickest, but they're very positionally sound and very physically adept. And Luiz is none of that, and I just don't. I really struggle to see what role he's going to fill in this team. I mean, it's honestly mind-boggling from a Chelsea perspective to spend that amount of money on a player when I think other more capable center backs are more available, especially given Luiz's age. I believe, what is he? He'll be 30 next year, I believe. He's not exactly one for the future. I mean, he's not, a center back. You'd expect him to have another 4 or 5 seasons at the top of his game. But what is the top of his game? I mean, we saw him against Monaco making a hash of things. We've seen him fail at the biggest stages before, particularly in the World Cup in 2014. It just doesn't make any sense from a Chelsea perspective to bring in a player. Yes, they needed a center back, but thinking about the other options that were out there, it's a little hard to conceive of this. I mean, You look at, for example, Mehdi Benatia going to Juventus. If he's a spare part at Bayern Munich, why aren't Chelsea in for someone of more proven quality that's adept at that position? And perhaps if Conte sees him as being able to be deployed in defensive midfield as well, there's something to be said for that. I do think Luis is a better defensive midfielder than he is a center back, but it's just a really baffling move from a Chelsea perspective.
Yeah. I just wish that he's not going to play over the likes of Gary Cahill or Kurt Zouma, who are actually a decent centre halves and up and coming players. Well, especially Zouma. I mean, we know what David Luiz is, and it would be a real shame to have say David Luiz centre back pairing with John Terry and have Zouma on the bench. I mean, I would really be quite disappointed if Conte did that, which I don't think he will.
Yeah, I think the move signalled that he's probably thinking about trying to employ his 3-5-2 that he did at Juventus a little bit more often.
Well, maybe, but Chelsea. Is he actually a 3-5-2 manager?
Yeah, I think it was pretty common with Italy. Played pretty much that formation as well, so he would definitely play if he can. I think he'll definitely play that.
I remember asking a question to a Juventus fan. I think he did say at the start he started with 4, but I think he is quite tactically astute. So I reckon he will play the best formation he sees fit.
Yeah, he can switch on a whim a little bit, can't he? But a little bit more of an exciting move now, and Southampton bought Lille's Sofiane Boufal, who obviously will miss the first couple of weeks because he's still out injured, Philip. But he's an exciting player that could really light up at St Mary's, couldn't he?
Yeah, and I've been posting on a forum about with Southampton fans, and they seem extremely distraught by their summer. First of all, losing their manager. Pirelli is not actually a fan favourite, even though it's very, very early days. And so obviously, me being the Liga fanboy that I am, me telling them how awesome Sofiane Boufal is, how ridiculously good and technically gifted he is. I think it's a bit, honestly, from our perspective, it's a bit frustrating because such a talent to go to a mid-table Premiership side is a bit of a waste. I mean, Southampton. I don't think Southampton will have a season like West Ham had. So probably going to West Ham. West Ham are a big club, but come on, you have a talent like Boufal. You'd expect. I mean, I would have expected PSG to buy him. But they went for Ben Arfa. So, yeah, it's great for Southampton. But when you look at the quality of the players, I don't think they really realise what they got. I mean, when he's fit, he is potentially a very, very good player who can unlock the defences. Because let's face it, if you can unlock the defences in Liga, you have a better shot at doing that in the Premiership.
Yeah, and he's a really talented player, isn't he, Eric? But let's talk about whether this is the right move for him. Is Southampton the right club for him right now? Yeah,
I think so. I think that it remains to be seen how he's going to fit into things tactically. Claude Puel started with a 4-3-1-2. That's more to accommodate the glut of central midfielders he has. He's got Stephen Davis, James Ward-Prowse, Jordi Clasie, Oriol Romeo, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. There's just a lot of central midfielders, but I'd like to see Southampton play a 4-3-3 with Dusan Tadic on the left, Boufal on the right, and Nathan Redmond as a striker. You might say, okay, that's not that doesn't have a recognized central striker, but we've seen that both Tadic and Boufal can score enough goals. Redmond, with his pace, can pull the defense about, and I think that would be a really effective group going forward, and it would really bring the best out of all three of those attacking players, and would make Southampton a bit more of an attractive prospect going forward. We've known them to be solid defensively, and I don't expect that to change based on the players they have in their squad. And I think that with European football and the chance to stretch his legs and express himself in a system that won't force him to have the defensive duties that he might in a different system, that things are very well set up for Boufal at Southampton. They are a club that is perhaps dealing with lessened expectations given the window that they've had losing the likes of Wanyama, Pele, Mane, and I think there's a real opportunity for him to stake his claim as being an important, an impressive attacking player in the Premier League.
Yeah, and I
I
think
actually reckon that Puel should actually ditch his 4-3-1-2. I reckon he, not that Ben Arfa made the 4-3-1-2 a successful thing at Nice, but I'm not quite sure he has the personnel to do that at Southampton. And I think you need a really talented number 10, so behind the two strikers, so that one in the 4-3-1-2, to make it successful. And I'm not quite sure that Southampton has this mobile side that can make it work. But yeah, that's me.
And it's interesting. The Buffon signing obviously means they could play 4-3-3. They can move to 4-2-3-1 as well, with Tadic possibly behind someone like Shane Long or Charlie Austin, and move Nathan Redmond out wide. I think it's an interesting move, and I think it's a good place for him to grow and possibly get that next move maybe in a couple of summers when he's really started to develop into a really good footballer, which he's not far off already. One of the more surprising moves again was from Sunderland, who signed Didier Ndong from Lorient for £20 million. He's 20 million euros, apologies, which is about €2 million more than Ousmane Dembele, if you can believe that. But Eric, ignoring that comparison because it's a little unfair on the central midfielder, what do you think are his qualities and what will he bring to the Stadium of Light?
I understand why Sunderland made this move. They weren't able to sign Jan Mbila permanently, and they needed to have someone in defensive midfield. But I have to question whether Ndong is the same type of player that would offer that amount of quality. For that amount of money, Ndong is combative, he's active, he's physical, he's going to give his all. But, I worry a little bit about his physical size. I worry about his propensity for bookings. And we saw him with that rash challenge against Bastia the other weekend for Lorient. I don't know, whether or not this is the best move. I mean, I think there are other more accomplished and more more proactively creative players that could offer more in that position. And I think well done to Lorient for doing the business. That's going to help him quite a bit. But is he going to be what Sunderland need? I really am not very optimistic about this move in terms of him being an important part of Sunderland's midfield. We've already looked at the likes of Lee Cattermole and other players who have shall we say, a propensity for picking up cards, but it's a little bit frustrating.
Maybe he can become what Joey Barton was here, being quite physical.
I hope he doesn't have that Geordie accent. That might be a bit worrying.
Is it a case? Is this a case of David Moyes buying Lorient players because Kearney works so well at Sunderland? I'm just wondering. But no, I mean he did need a midfield, and I'm quite skeptical as well.
It is an unusual at this time, I think, as well. And Ndong maybe needing another season in Liga for me to really sort of grow into as a footballer. But so another player who probably needed another season, although he's done a little bit more, is Georges-Kevin Nkudu. His transfer to Tottenham was eventually sorted out just before deadline day. Philip, what's he going to bring to Tottenham? Although he might not quite get the game time we hope for.
Well, I think he'll get his chance. He will need to take it, but he's basically this white-footed left winger who comes inside, either has a decent cross and a decent pass, plays between the lines, or have a go from distance. I mean, he is a good player. I just hope that it doesn't turn out to be like Clinton NG, who he is replacing. So he is replacing someone who sits on the bench. I mean, he is a better player than Clinton NG, but I just hope he'll get his chance. But I haven't seen. I think I've seen Tottenham just once this season. It was against Liverpool, and I haven't looked particularly inspired. So I think Pochettino could use someone with that level of creativity.
Eric, Philip's already mentioned it, that there will be inevitable comparisons with another Ligue 1 star that Tottenham bought in Clinton and G, who's returned to France with Marseille on loan, which is an exciting prospect. But is he going to get the game time? I mean, even a player like Heung-min Son is struggling to break into the first team on a regular basis.
I mean, that's exactly what came to mind. I mean, Heung-min Son was fantastic for Bayer Leverkusen for a number of years. He's a proven international with South Korea. He was one of the best players in the Bundesliga when he was there. And now, because of the way Pochettino chooses to operate in this team, Christian Eriksen is also nominally used on the left wing, even though he's a more creative player. So you're probably looking at least two players that are ahead of Nkudu, unless you want to play him as unless you want to play him in a different system. I given some credence to the suggestion that Nkudu could play as a false nine, like a Theo Walcott style player. Walcott has been effective there. And again, that's Arsenal, not Spurs, but as a pacey, direct striker who can profit from balls in over the top against a slower defense. But again, Spurs are in the Champions League, not the Europa League this year. So their focus from week to week and the priority they're going to have to put on different matches in rapid succession, I think is only going to exacerbate this lack of playing time for players who aren't in Pochettino's first choice 11, and that's Nkudu. I think maybe if they want the player, if they view him as one for the future, maybe a buyback, a purchase and loan back agreement, something along those lines. But yeah, I think this is a move that's going to stall Nkudu's career for the time being. He's only 21. He's a little bit younger than NG, who I think is 23 at this point, or maybe 24. But yeah, it's a frustrating move. I think from Nkudu's perspective, he's being wooed by salary and not by the chance to develop his play. I thought he was fantastic 2 years ago at Nantes. I thought that the step up to Marseille seemed like the right one. He progressed fairly well, but I don't see space for him in this Spurs team in the biggest matches.
Ng's just turned 23. I've just spotted that. So at least he's got some time to recover from that fairly odd season at White Hart Lane where he barely saw the pitch. But a seasoned international that should definitely see the pitch now at least is Steve Mandanda, who's joined Crystal Palace. Philip, what a good keeper Palace are getting, really.
Yeah, see, this is exactly like Buffal. Mandanda at Palace, really. He was at the biggest club in France, and now he's probably one of probably not the smallest London club in the Premiership, but not far off. Actually, the club doesn't seem to be very well run now that Alan Pardew has, from what I hear, pissed everybody off. And he's not even 100% starter, so it really is a shame when I was talking to this with a Marseille fan, and he said, people are going to bend over backwards to sign him. He's free. He didn't cost a dime, and he went to Crystal Palace. It's a bit, yes, he's not as good as De Gea or Courtois, but Manchester City, if Guardiola made his intentions about Joe Hart not being compatible with his style of pressing play, and that's coming from the goalkeeper to the centre forward, I probably would have taken Mandanda over whoever they got. I mean, it's a bit disappointing to see that quality Ligue 1 players are going to quite unfancy Premiership sides. But he is extremely good. Again, I think he should have done better on Italy's goal on Thursday evening. A lot of experts said that he couldn't do anything, he couldn't move. It went between the legs of Varane, but so what? I mean, he can still have a dive or something. But no, he's an extremely gifted goalkeeper.
Yeah, and
again, no offense to Palace fans, but I just what can I say? They're rich.
That's the Premier League full stop at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Eric, it does seem unusual in a sense that he's gone to a team like Palace when I know Liverpool bought Loris Karius, but he would have been an interesting option there. And there's a number of clubs. Everton were looking for a goalkeeper, and they've gone for Martin Stecklenburg. Surely more clubs were interested in such a seasoned international who played still playing at such a high level last season.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of factors. I mean, honestly, the lure of London is something that we've seen attract a lot of players, perhaps away from competitive or wage situations. Money being more immaterial, as it were, in the Premier League, that all teams can offer a very high salary raise to Mandanda. Maybe he also feels that he's got a better chance to be the number one. I mean, Wayne Hennessy, at the time being is here, but he certainly had a Julian Speroni, and perhaps he feels as the season wears on that he can make himself a fully established number one. I mean, I think that's probably what he's looking at. If you go to Liverpool, if you go to Everton, there's probably gonna be a higher level of competition based on those clubs' aims for the season. I mean, I know Palace has spent quite a bit of money this summer, especially on the likes of Benteke, and Andros Townsend, but I think that he sees a way forward in terms of becoming an important player for this team. He started at the weekend last weekend against Bournemouth and did all right. So it's he sees himself as having a chance of establishing himself as a number one at a Premier League club and having a good 6 or 7 years there.
Let's do some rapid fire ones now, so we can try and get through some of this list, because there is quite a few still names and there's a few dotted around Europe as well. So we'll go to you first, Philip. And Bryce Jarjeje has failed to make Watford's Premier League squad, so they're not going to see too much of him. But what is the right back like for the Hornets fans?
He was. He can be extremely good if he's well managed. He was extremely well managed by Bielsa, and when Marseille were top of the league in the first half of not the season before last, he was exceptional. So if you give him his chance, he's very good, but he's not even going to make the bench.
Not going to make any squads. Yeah, it's such a.
Don't Palace have that kind of? Didn't Palace do the same thing with Florian Marange 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I think they did. They bought him and then they announced their squad and he wasn't even in it.
Very unusual. It doesn't make any sense. And
it's starting to become usual, all these clubs are buying French players but not really using it.
I feel
very nice.
No, I feel sorry for George J. Hopefully he gets some games somewhere.
You see, the thing with Marange is that he did go back to France a couple of months later because he said, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, let's hope it's.
And I reckon Jarjeje will do the same.
Eric, Napoli's and Mendes, he's got a tough job of replacing Conte, but he's a really solid player, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that he was perhaps one of the more unsung heroes. We looked at the likes of Coziello, Seri, and Ben Arfa, and Playa and Germain being so important to Nice last season, but Monti was the player who kept that all together at the base of that Diamond 442, and we had seen huge offers being made for him last summer, and now he's being tempted to a Leicester City team who are offering Champions League football, or offering a higher wage packet. It makes sense. I think he'll is he going to be N'Golo Kante? No, but he's. I think is capable as a replacement as Leicester realistically could have hoped for.
So let's keep with this quick fire ones. There's a couple from the Championship, and they would have already seen him play a few times. But Bastia's former player Floyd Aite, Philip, he's a nice solid player, especially for that level of football.
Yeah, pacey winger. No, it's he's not going to probably not going to be able to unlock stern defenses. But no, it's he's okay. He's quite pacey. Not probably not as not good in the final third, but quite fast, which is probably why he's on the wing.
Yeah, it's good to and Fulham have had a really good start to the season, and he's been a little bit of a part of that at least. And two players, Eric, that have joined the new riches of Wolverhampton Wanderers, and that's Romain Saiss from Angers and Ivan Caballero on loan from Monaco. What can the Wolves faithful expect from those two?
Yeah, Saiss is great. I think he's a very high energy player. He's very disciplined in the tackle. He's good at starting counterattacks. He was really key to providing the protection for that back four that made Angers such a tough nut to crack last season. So well done, Wolves, in that count. Caballero, gosh, the way he started last season, linking up with Kurzawa, was fantastic. He looked like a brilliant signing on Monaco's part, but as the season wore on, he struggled to find match time. He struggled with his fitness. And, he's still only 22. There's still a bit ahead of him. I mean, obviously, he's very highly regarded by Benfica at their academy, but I'm not sure whether he's at a level that he's going to make a big impact for Wolves. So I'm a little bit less sure on that one. But Saiss is a fantastic signing.
Yeah, so let's go on the continent then, and there's a couple more there very quickly. So, Philip, we've talked about him plenty enough, and Wissam Ben Yedder finally got his move to Sevilla. What can they expect from him?
I think he'll be quite a hit. I'm not sure if it'll be those kinds of seasons where he just bangs in the goals. Like I said, it's much harder to score goals in Liga than it is in England, and I reckon it's the same for La Liga. And I think Ben Yedder has actually already started scoring, hasn't he? I think he played one, scored one, or something like that.
Yeah, and it's good.
Which is promising. So I'm expecting something more of the same, something maybe like 10 goals this season, barring injuries.
Another man who's moved to La Liga, Eric, and you know him well, Samuel Umtiti. What are Barcelona getting in the Frenchman?
I think he's someone who is going to have some work to do in terms of his positioning in a La Liga that offers a lot more in terms of talent on the ball, but he's wonderful with the ball at his feet. He's an adept passer of the ball, which I think is going to fit in well with the Barcelona philosophy that we know so well. And I think and again, he's only 23, I believe, at this point. So still lots of time for him to improve and grow, especially as center backs usually do reach maturity a little bit later than other positions. So yeah, especially for the fee involved, I think well done for Barcelona to sign him. And as the likes of Javier Mascherano age out of the squad, I think he'll be certainly an important part of Barcelona's first team for the next 8 to 10 years with any luck.
Yeah, Barcelona has a history of French players actually failing when they bought them. So the guys I'm pointing out are Christophe Dugarry and Philippe Cristanval. That's from
Eric Abidal. I mean, you can spin that two ways, Philip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, actually,
Thierry Henry.
No. What I'm getting at is that some French players have failed at Barcelona, and I just really hope that Umtiti doesn't, because if he doesn't fail and if he adapts to that level of play, we've got an absolutely fantastic centre back for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
I just don't want Umtiti to be another Cristanval. That's what I wanted to say.
That's not hard to argue. And he turns 23 in November, so there's plenty of time for him to grow as a footballer. And finally, the two players from Ligue 1 that joined Dortmund this summer in Rafael Guerreiro and Ousmane Dembele. Philip, they're getting some real talent, aren't they? Thomas Tuchel's men.
Yeah, lots of talent from the wings. We have no idea how good Dembele can be, but I think everyone in Germany has some kind of an idea of what they've got now that he's played a couple of games. And Guerrero is quite good on his left wing as well. I think it's I'm not quite sure of the situation over the left back position at Dortmund, with Schmelzer getting a bit old, Durm, who I reckon should take that left back spot, and Guerrero can play also left back and left midfield, left wing, so he doesn't have to be the next Dortmund left back for the next generation, but he could. And he's a great asset to come from deep, so that could be quite good. But then again, he can play very very much decently at left midfield and in both systems, with 4 at the back and 3 at the back. That's good.
Yeah, and if you've not seen it, there's a fantastic interview with Mainz defender. It's in English as well if you want to search it up, with Mainz defender Leon Balogun talking about Ousmane Dembele, and he describes him as freaking amazing. So it's really good. He goes, this Dembele kid is unbelievable. I said it during the game to Aubameyang. Whoa, what kid did you buy there? I think that was exactly what we were saying throughout the season last season, and it's great to see the optimism of him in Germany. But let's talk about those that have come into Liga very quickly this evening. And there's a couple of juicy names in there, especially heading to Nice. And Eric, the big one, is the mercurial talent, as we know and love, of Mario Balotelli. He's hoping for that magic touch, like we mentioned earlier, that Hatem Ben Arfa had. What do you make of this move?
I think, I don't know what Nice are paying for the wages, but given it is a free transfer, and given that Balotelli is still only 26, he'll be willing to prove himself. And if Lucien Favre can focus this 4-2-3-1 around him, I think that he's got a real chance to be someone who can score 15 goals, make Nice the force that they were last season, pushing for European play, particularly with Belhanda coming in. When I first heard the move announced for Balotelli, I'm like, oh, well, great. He'll come in, and there's a bunch of kids who are, fine talents for the future. But, I mean, if we're really relying on the likes of Arnaud Lusamba and William Cyprien to give Balotelli service, they're both fine prospects, but is Balotelli going to get frustrated with this? Now you've got him with Younes Belhanda, who's a proven Ligue 1 talent, fantastic attacking player. And I think that Nice have done really well, and if they can set this team up properly, and maybe play something like a 4-2-3-1. Personnel to be determined, of course. Getting Coziello and Seri as well. I think there's a lot to be gained here. The one thing I would worry about a little bit is how it's going to affect the development of perhaps some of those younger players, the likes of Coziello or perhaps Alassane Plea, depending on how playing time sorted out for those youngsters. But I think, very very well done to Nice. Worst case scenario, they're still going to have the likes of Plea to be a central striker if Balotelli doesn't come off. But with the fixture congestion they'll be faced with the Europa League, I think it's a fine risk.
Yeah, it's a really interesting prospect to have someone like Balotelli come into Liga and into a team like Nice, Philip. I mean, we saw a couple of back in the a couple of Euros ago that he can be such a wonderful talent and such a wonderful footballer when he wants to be, and maybe this might be the right club that finally sets his head right. Do you think that might, if we're lucky, happen at the Allianz Riviera?
To be honest, the reaction here has been that the guy's a nut job, but also a genius, and that this is I'm not sure if this is actually on pitch or off pitch related, in that it will make publicity for the club, and something like that. But I feel that most people realize that this is probably 50% a marketing stunt and 50%, the chance of seeing a world-class player perform in a very high level. But nobody really expects him to do that. I mean, they expect him to be actually Balotelli, to do stupid things, make us laugh and stuff like that. I think this will happen, but that of him being having a great season, not a lot of people are actually expecting that, but everyone is looking forward to it.
Yeah, and this is absolutely 100%, no doubt about it, last chance saloon for Mario Balotelli, really, in European football, and he has to try and make the most of it. I agree with you, Eric. I really like that move for Younes Belhanda. That might just be a nice little spark to that Nice team that still looks quite interesting under Favre. Let's talk about PSG, Philip, and their transfer window. Obviously, they brought in a fair few players, but while we were praising it quite considerably during moments of this podcast, he's not played Krychowiak yet. Mounier's clearly a substitute player. Have they really done enough this window? Did they need to buy a striker?
Yeah, they did. So you talked about it at length. So analysing the game, the Monaco PSG game, and first of all, only have just one recognised number 9 in the whole squad. One good one. and he's not even that good, is a great risk if you want to win the Champions League. And what is going to probably happen is that PSG will have to regress to make Ligue 1 more exciting, which is, it's not especially a bad thing for people like us who follow Ligue 1 week after week after week. But the aim is still for France to have a decent coefficient and to have four teams able to qualify for the Champions League, and for that you need PSG to have a decent set of results. So I think it's there's it's a good thing and a bad thing. But to me, Zlatan has not been replaced. Krychowiak has been brought to replace Thiago Motta. He still hasn't played a minute. Matuidi, if he basically hid the fact that he wanted to leave, and not very well from the media, and Unai has to play under an immense pressure after that Monaco game, and he's not really able to do what he wants, as you correctly stated last week. So no, I think PSG's squad is actually weaker than last season. It's just that PSG were able to sell David Luiz at the 11th hour. That probably makes it a bit better, but that's no real consolation, I'm afraid.
It makes anyone's transfer window better, that one, I think, at the end.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our best and worst and our favourite moves of the summer now. Then, I'll start with you, Eric. So let's go with your favourite move of the summer from any club.
I think that for me, I probably would go with Djibril Sidibé to Monaco. I think that the tactical versatility that allows Leonardo Jardim is a big upgrade in that position. It allows Fabinho to play in midfield alongside Bakayoko. They've formed a really impressive-looking partnership thus far. And he's also able to play further forward when necessary, as we saw at the weekend. And I think it just offers Monaco, a lot of depth and flexibility that we saw them struggle with that in terms of injuries last season. And if that does become the case again, having a player who's able to operate multiple roles with some degree of success is going to be really important, as he can also play left back as well.
Philip, do you have a favourite transfer of this window? I
like Guingamp's new goalkeeper. I think he's quite good. I know it's a bit unfancied, but I've seen we've seen Guingamp a couple of times already, and yeah, he looks quite decent. Another quite shrewd piece of business by Guingamp. It's good.
It's not hard to ask me what my favourite move is, and then Nicolas Depreville remaining in Liga is nice, but they've done a sneaky way around it of selling him to Ostend and having him on loan to avoid some of the issues with payments while they were waiting for the Buffal deal to get sorted. But we'll skip over that. That was a bit strange. But let's talk about the worst deals then. I'll open this to be either whoever you think is the worst deal or the worst club during this transfer window, Eric. Who do you think really let us down or picked a move that was a little bit odd, shall we say?
I would have to say not the worst move, but one that really baffles me is Monaco selling Marcel Tisserand. I think that he is a really impressive center back prospect, and the money they got for him, I think $3.5 million going to Germany. I'm not really sure what was going on there. I think that he's definitely one for the future. Obviously, Jemerson and Glick are going to be the first choice, and Raji's capable there as well. But I think with the number of fixtures they'd be playing, given the cup competitions in France as well as the Champions League, he certainly would have had an opportunity to develop and to become one for the future. So I think that's maybe Monaco being a little bit overzealous. I mean, is that $3.5 million really going to make or break their season, especially as he's been sold after they qualify for the Champions League? So knowing they're going to get the money from the gates for these group stages, the TV deals, TV money that they're going to get from playing the group stage, it seems a bit unnecessary.
Philip, do you have a villain of the transfer window to say, like either a club or a player, a move that you just can't quite wrap your head around?
Yeah, I'd go for a club. And the club would be Montpellier. They sold everyone, they bought no one, and their squad is watertight, and they're probably going to have a very busy January window. And so maybe Nicolas, his company hasn't had a too good a year, and he decided that he didn't want to pay as many footballers as he used to last season. So yeah, they're basically asking for let's do our fan the favour and not have any players for half a season.
Yeah,
and I mean it's severe. Yeah, it's especially since Nicolas is loaded, but I do understand that some football owners lose money every year. So I mean I can't really blame them. I've never owned a football club, but it's a shame. It's a shame. They had a good side, and now it's yeah.
It's going to be.
It's not great.
Time. No. I think I'll finish with my disappointing move in the summer, and that's Toulouse deciding that the best way to replace all the goals of Wissam Ben Yedder is to bring in Ola Toivonen, who's he's not scored in England, he's not scored many in France, he's not scored many internationally, he's not going to score many. Is probably the best way to sum that up. But thank God for Martin Braithwaite stepping up. But at least they've got.
To be honest, Ben Yedder is hard to replace.
Oh yes,
a side like in Liga.
But you're essentially
a good side.
You might as well replace him with a steel rod or a fence rather than Ola Toivonen. At least it would be cheaper. But that's all we have time for this week. My thanks to Eric, Philip, and to all of you listening at home. Join us on Thursday for our preview show, which will be back because the Ligue 1 season is back underway on Saturday. And make sure to tune in again at the same time, same place next week. A bientôt and goodbye.